Hi, this is Keith Lee Morris here in Peru from the United States. I am the author of the short story collection Llámalo, quieras from Pesopluma Press that was translated from Tin House Books in the US. It is a book of 13 short stories about everyday people who find themselves in extraordinary circumstances. Sometimes circumstances that seem real, sometimes circumstances that seem very surreal or absurd. I want to thank Jose for talking to me today about the book, and Pesopluma Press for bringing me to Peru and giving me the opportunity to talk about the book here at the Ricardo Palma Book Fair in Lima.
How special is for you the first story, Testimony?
That was the hardest story in the, well, one of the hardest stories in the collection to write because it's based on a murder trial, and I was actually the jury foreman of a murder trial that's very much like the case that's mentioned in the story. And so it was a tragic story about a man who accidentally killed his wife while they were on drugs. And I could, for a long time, I could not understand, I couldn't figure out a way to write about the trial itself. And finally I thought, let's write it from the standpoint of one particular witness who testifies in the trial, and what that person's role was and what that person's responsibility was. And so it was a very personal story, and it was a story where I was able to explore the themes of guilt and redemption, which is one of my typical themes that I write about. And it was the first story in the collection that was translated into Spanish by Julio Duran. He translated it for a magazine called Orsay that's out of Spain and I believe Argentina as well. So it was the story that started off the Spanish translation, so it's very important.
It is correct to say that half of the book is like more realistic stories and the other half is more surrealistic?
Yes. Fair enough, yes. And so they came from two different kinds of stories. I've always written realistic stories, but I started writing stories based on dreams and originally wanted to put together a whole book of stories just based on dreams. The publisher wanted to mix it with the more realistic stories. So the way that the book sort of works is that it starts off in the real world and kind of becomes more and more strange as it moves along.
Finally, does Keith Lee Morris is so normal as his characters, or is more extraordinary person?
I'm the one who's commenting on it, so I feel like the people that I write about is just average people. Those are the people I grew up around, so certainly I still feel that's my world, those are my friends, and I'm still part of that. But obviously, having become a writer and commenting on that, it's almost a little bit metafictional in a way, so your character becomes kind of two different things, the person who lives those things and then the person who talks about them to other people.